Good evening, everyone. I'm François. I'm product manager here at Arturia. And today I'm with Lily, who's artist and sound designer, also working here. And we're here tonight to introduce you Efx Fragments, which is our latest addition to our Efx portfolio. An amazing creative effect based on granular synthesis. So we are here for an hour together. In the first time, I'm gonna present you the different parts of the effect. Then we're gonna go through a couple of presets that we have chosen together. And at the end of this hour, we're gonna answer your questions if you have some. So without any further ado, let's open the plugin. So here we are using the default presets. We are just using a stage 73 V2, which is included in the collection.
Yeah.
So maybe play just a couple of chords. So
this is actually a multi with the bass. It's a stage 73 with a bass. And this is just the dry preset, so very simple.
And this is the default patch from Efx Fragments. So Fragments is divided into 5 different sections that you will find on the screen. So here you have your buffer, which is surrounded by 2 macros and a few mix controls. The grain capture module, which is here and which allow you to decide which part of the buffer you will use to trigger grains. Here is the grain release module, which will define the density, the size, and the pitch of your grains. Here you have an advanced spanner, 2 FX slots. And finally, here at the bottom, you have the modulation section featuring 2 function generators, which are quite advanced and inspired by the one that we have in our software scene, such as Pigments, an envelope follower, and a step sequencer for modulation. So I just wanted to start with this default patch and tweak a few knobs just to explain you exactly what the plugin is doing. So here we are in the offset mode of the grain capture module. So the offset knob determines the position of the playhead. The playhead is this big yellow line, and it defines the start position of all the grains. By increasing the offset or decreasing it, you can select which part, which is the delay between the playhead, the white line, and the playhead, which is the yellow. This grain capture module features 2 different grain quantization modes, which are transient and grid. What's really interesting with this grain quantization feature is that you can use it on chords to create waterfalls of grains.
And there you have 100% sensitivity.
Yeah,
on the transients.
It's a bit high here. But what's really amazing is that it allows you to have grains that are always perfectly in pitch with what you are playing. So for example, with this very long 4-bar buffer, all the grains are just perfectly in tune. So this is the grain quantization. You also have the grid mode, which allows you to split your buffer into 16 or 32 different steps. We will come back to this a bit later in some other presets. But again, it allows you to define different starting positions for the grains. It can be really useful and musical with rhythmic content, for example. Here you have the grain release part of the plugin. So this is the core of the plugin. It allows you to define either the density, the size, and the pitch of each grain individually, add some randomization, and go a little bit deeper with this control at the bottom. So first, I will start by just showing you exactly what does the density control. So density basically means how many grains you produce during a time frame. So here the grains are synced to the tempo, and I can go up to 1 on 256, or we can have very sparse grains if I dial the density back. Size is about the length of each grain individually. So you can go from very, very short grains to way longer ones.
So you can hear like the very small particles versus like very smooth movement.
Yep. And finally, here you have the pitch knob, which allows you to transpose the grain. So here they are an octave up, 2 octaves up. And this is depending on the scale that you've chose. So as you can see, each knob has a small drop-down menu underneath. This allows you to, for density and size, to sync the density and size to your host tempo. For pitch, you have here a choice of 14 different scales that can be followed by the grains. So this means that if you are playing something in minor, for example, you set pentatonic minor, and then all the grains will be in the perfect scale, like all the intervals between the grains will be in scale. These 3 controls have something very special about them. It's the yellow color that is surrounding them. This is a control, a separate control from the pitch, size, and density, and they are all acting as random parameters for density, size, and pitch. I'm not gonna, let's play something, and I'm gonna increase the random pitch, and you will see what I mean by that. So here, you only have, most of the grains are pitched up by an octave, but if I increase the random control upward, I trigger more and more grains in the upper octaves because the scale here is set to octaves. If I go downwards, I will trigger grains in the other direction.
And you can do both.
And you can do both, of course. You just have to click here, and you can trigger grains that are both up and down. So this is really interesting for creating texture, for example. You can have something. That takes up a lot of space. And this works, as I said, for also the other controls. So for size, if I decide to have only very, very short grains, and I increase the random control for size, I have more and more long grains that are with the very small one that I've set initially with this knob. And same goes for density. So these are the 3 main controls of the granular engine, and underneath you will find these 4 small knobs and this drop down. Width is a control that introduces some randomness in the grains that are triggered left and right. So this is great for adding some
stereo image.
Yeah, exactly. So you can set it quite high. It will just enlarge your stereo space. Grain direction, on the other hand, is quite more intense in terms of effects. It sets the amount of grains that are played either forward or backwards. So here it is set at 80% forward. But if I go in the other direction, then all the grains, pretty much all the grains, will be played backwards.
This is like the granular engine in Pigments.
Yes, this is a feature that is present in our software synth Pigments in the granular engine. So this can be quite cool. I think it's at like 50-50 can be very perfect for creating textures and moving sounds. So yeah, here you have the grain crush drop-down menu, which allows you to decide whether you want to apply bit crushing to the buffer or not. You have 5 different presets. It's important to notice that it is pre-buffer, so that means that the grains will be a bit crushed, and it's not like the overall signal. Here you have the grain shape. So what will be exactly the shape of the grain? So it can be either triangle, trapeze, tucky, Gaussian. We'll see in some other example later on the incidence of this control. But this can easily allow you to go either from a very clicky envelope to something way smoother and way lushier, if I can say. And finally, here we have the random fine. It's just a random control on pitch that allows you to detune your sound from -1 to +1 semitone. So this is quite cool. It has this kind of lo-fi vibe when you play with it. So that's it for the grain release section. Finally, and I will go quickly through it, you have here an advanced panner that we will cover afterwards that allows you just to place the grains in the stereo field on like 2 different axes, either left, right, or far and near. And here you have 2 different Efx slots featuring some of the effects that we have in our software synths in V Collection and Pigments. So if you are familiar with this product, you will find the multi-distortion, for example, and many others. So maybe we should start to cover presets. What do you think?
Let's go through some. These presets are all in the factory, so that come the 60 presets that come with the effect.
Yeah. So here, so we're using the preset called Transient Stretch. This is an interesting one because it showcases exactly the way the transient quantization behaves while triggering grains. So
let's hear it. Maybe 1 octave higher.
So what's really interesting in this preset is that it's using the texture mode. Texture mode is something quite unique because it's like you're stacking grains on top of each other, and it can create these beautiful long streams of grains. So here the layers are quite low, but with the intensity macro, well, actually it was quite high on this preset, but with the intensity macro, that acts both on the layers and on the pitch, you can definitely see and hear the importance of that. So
and here the pitch is not quantized.
Yes. So the higher the intensity knob is turned, the higher the grain count is. But now if I decide maybe to quantize the grain to a scale, so let's say octaves, for example, then the range of intensity will be from very low to very high, and from very low layers to very high pitch as well. But yeah, let's go back to the chaotic one. So that's the thing with granular synthesis. It can be either very dramatic or very musical in some ways.
Very tamed as well.
Of course. You may have also noticed in this center area of the plugin a visualizer for the grains. So this is something quite special because it can help you visualizing exactly what you are doing with the engine.
So if I play 1 note, for example.
Yeah, here, if I go for shorter grains, for example, you will see on the center display that the grains will become shorter. If I add some, let's say, random pitch, you will see that the grains will be moving, will be starting to be played from upward and downward. And if I increase the layers, then we'll have some more grains.
Fills up the screen.
Yeah, definitely. This is quite unique to Fragments. Well, maybe we should go through another preset. This one is quite interesting because it uses the rhythmic mode.
Yeah.
So, as I said before, it's quite interesting because you have these 3 different grain release modes in Fragments. You have classic, texture, and rhythmic. And on this loop, we're gonna utilize this last mode, which is quite unique because it's using step sequencing as a density setting, if I can say so.
And you can see on the pitch how it's moving, and the sequencer is free running and is modulating the pitch, which is what.
Here the sequencer is mapped to the pitch knob, and it follows a sequence of 8 steps. And at the same time, here you have the grain sequencer that is running also, and let's hear what it does.
Maybe here also dry.
Yeah, so this is dry sound. So very basic pluck, yeah. And with Fragments, so you can trigger grains on very specific steps. That's what we're doing right here. And the higher I increase the intensity macro, the higher the rate of the sequencer will be as well. It can become quite cool in conjunction with the Efx macro here. So, as discussed just before, here this grain sequencer is something very unique because you can choose to trigger either 0, 1, 2, or 4 grains on a specific step. So, for example, if I decide to trigger 2 grains at some places here, it can become really rhythmical, and it works really well with very sharp envelopes for the grains. It's quite cool, either with very, I don't know, like musical sound, but also with percussive sounds. Yeah. It's something really cool.
And you can always follow the same order of steps, or you can add a percentage of random also in the sequencer to really, never have the same pattern playing.
True. Yeah, just click the arrow right here, and you will have a different pattern. Another one which is quite cool is this one that you prepared, Lily. Maybe you want to say a bit more about it.
This is also the original preset is a multi and analog lab using a cello sample and a choir and pigments. So it sounds like without it first.
Yeah.
Like this, quite dry, and then with the preset Lush Planet. So all of a sudden it becomes really atmospheric. It's also in texture mode, and there's, I don't know how many layers are being stacked. I think 16.
I think 16, yeah.
16
and
layers.
It can go up to 32, but it's already a lot.
And it's the grain capture position is completely randomized on in both directions. So it creates like this really lush, it's called Lush Planet. Really lush effect.
So I can tame down a little bit the effects, but it remains very organic. And this is typically the kind of preset that works well with pads, strings, these kind of things. What's interesting here, if I remember correctly, is the intensity macro is mapped to the pitch, and the pitch is following 4th and 5th, so it can become again quite useful just to transpose everything.
It still stays in the same key or the tonic, but it like changes the starting point.
It can go even higher.
So it's so easy with automations, just making slight movements on these parameters to, have really interesting stuff happening in your compositions.
Yeah. And this is a preset that is perfect to showcase the advanced panning that is available here on the right. So here we have a very slow pan.
Now I hear it better.
that can act even as a right-left tremolo. And here, so if you don't use any distance, it's a simple panner that goes from left to right. If you increase the distance, you will notice, if you use headphones or good speakers, that the sound is moving away and coming back. It can be really cool, especially on this kind of preset that is 100% wet. You definitely hear this drastic effect.
Yeah. And if you want to have like a cinematic effect also, you know, with movement on this, because there's two different axes instead of just one left and right.
So this is quite a cool preset. Let's move to something quite interesting. I was talking a little bit earlier about the way the rhythmic mode with transient detection and grain quantization could be really interesting. Here I have a very basic drum loop, and if I go to this preset, for example, it can become really something else. So this preset basically combines the sequencer rate that is modified by the modulation sequencer, and there is a lot of automation going on with the pitch as well. So each transient is detected within the buffer.
And also the grain mix
is
being opened and closed fully.
Yeah, it allows you to have this kind of like beat repeater effect. This is something people usually do with breakbeats in drum and bass, for example. So this one is quite low, but in BPM, I mean. But if you put, for example, an amen break through it and find the sweet spot with the transient quantization here, you can do some really crazy stuff with amen breaks. So yeah, this is something we wanted to explore with Efx Fragments, because usually granular synthesis is all about doing textures and noisy stuff. But we found that all the rhythmical aspect sometimes was missing from granular processors and these kind of things. So yes, we've dedicated this mode, and it can be really cool. It's really fun to play with. So try it for yourself. Well, to finish, I wanted to show you something quite different. I wanted to play a few guitar chords, because when we were working on this plugin, I spent quite a lot of time playing guitar through it, and I found the result to be really interesting. So I'm gonna demonstrate you two different presets. This one is called Waterfall Octave. So it relies on very small synced grains and quite a lot of delay. So yeah, let me show you. So this is a kind of effect I was dreaming for years ago when I started collecting guitar pedals. It is mainly done by, I'm gonna just deactivate the effect real quick. So it's triggering very short grains that are pitched up, and then it goes through this delay that really helps creating this kind of movement. It's a ping pong delay, by the way. It goes from left to right.
That's dotted synced.
Yes.
That makes that nice rhythmic effect.
Yes, it really helps. This is kind of the U2 secret weapon. The Edge from U2 is always using dotted delays. And yeah, it's a really cool effect. Another one in another direction that I've prepared, and which is also included, of course, in the Arturia library, is this preset called From Sequence to Verb.
It's great. It's like 2 in 1.
Yes.
Two sounds in one.
You can, by tweaking the intensity macro, it can go from very, very short grains that sound almost like a sequence to a very massive shimmer reverb. So.
This is by changing the density, the size.
Yes.
When turning the intensity knob.
Exactly. The macro is mainly acting on the density and size settings. And here on the effects, I mean, there is only like a small filter, a filter that is slightly moving according to the function generator, and some reverb, but you still get this very, very, I don't know, a lot of very short grains, and the reverb just helps gluing together. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a pretty interesting effect right here. So this is cool because we had the possibility to go through the 3 different modes. Maybe there is something we could show regarding the modulators, I was thinking, because we've been showing presets that are using a lot of modulations, but here, as I said before, you have like this big set of modulators, which is quite dense. Simply, when you want to assign a modulator, so you can just edit it as you want. And to assign a modulation, you can pretty much assign it to any parameter that you want. So if I want to assign here the sequencer to the dry wet of this parameter, for example, it's as simple as this. I click Assign, and just simply drag across it. So this is the way you can create very moving presets, very evolutive, and yeah, this is interesting features that I forgot to mention just before.
And the parameters, they become highlighted when you hover over the modulations.
Yeah, just hover over the sequencer here, and you'll see where it is assigned, basically. You always have also on tabs, you have a very small dot that is highlighting here when you have a modulation that is activated on a specific tab, for example. So maybe that's it for the tour of these presets. I don't know if there is any questions in the chat right now. Let me check.
We got a few questions.
Yeah, we've got a few questions already. So we have a first live question. Is Fragments the only effect being heard in this demo, or is there any other reverb being applied?
Well, as we played the presets in dry, which we chose dry ones on purpose, without any internal effects in Analog Lab. So.
Yeah, all the presets that we've used, there is no other effects applied. The only other effect applied was on the guitar. I had an amplifier simulator just in front of the effect. I can actually show you the chain that I had. But yeah, I only have an amplifier, a noise gate, of course, for the guitar, an EQ, a compressor, but no other reverb or whatever. And yes, other than that, the only effect that you are hearing are from either the granular engine or the FX slots. So Is there a way to export the undo-redo changelog?
I have no idea.
I don't think so. I don't think so. This is something that I could clarify with our support team, but I don't think so. Feel like I create multiple interesting sounds, but can lose older versions when I keep experimenting. Okay, so this was related to the undo-redo. Sorry. This is something that we could consider maybe in an update or something. I will see if we can do so.
Well, we get into the habit of saving,
yes,
saving many instances of sounds of different presets, so we don't lose anything.
So we have another question, which is, how long did it take you folks to develop Efx Fragments?
Since last summer.
So yes, I've started to work on the product specification about yes, more than 6 months ago. I think it was in July.
Yeah.
And the development started at the same period of time. So it was quite a long project, but I mean, we're really happy with the results. And yeah, it's interesting because it can do so many different things. And people seem to enjoy it. So maybe you want to cover this one, or?
How is it different from pigments? What can I do with it that I cannot do with pigments? Well, you have the granular engine, right, from pigments that's in it. But I mean, there's, it's an effect, it's a multi-effect that's very powerful, but you can't compare it with an actual instrument, VST, which has the harmonic engine, and you can import samples. Here you have the buffer, you can put any audio source in it, but I guess I wouldn't compare it with pigments, since pigments is not an effect.
Yeah, it's that's exactly it. In pigments, you will always have a static material as a source for the grains. As with fragments, the audio that you are feeding into the effect is always changed by the effects. So
it's live versus static. Yeah.
Yeah. And yes, it's very complementary, if I could say. Something that is really fun is having the granular engine in pigments and having fragments afterwards, and the interaction you can get between these two products is just amazing.
Yeah, because they have similar parameters, and I also recommend using pigments and then fragments after it in the chain.
What makes it different than other granular processing softwares on the market? Well, as I mentioned a bit earlier, so yeah, I'm going back to my screen now, but in these two modules, if I only remain on the granular aspect of the plugin first, in these two modules, you have these grain quantization features that we've presented a bit earlier that are quite unique because you just play a chord and all the grains are starting to be produced from this exact point, this exact transient. And this is something that can be really musical, really beautiful. The grid mode is something else. And yes, the conjunction of these two different grain quantization allows you to have effects that are in between beat repeat, stutter effect, and granular, which is quite unique in my opinion. In the grain release section also, these three modes are very complementary and are quite unique in their operation as well. Especially the rhythmic mode. With the grain sequencer, you can do so many crazy stuff with it. Just I really encourage you to try it by yourself. But the possibility to play grains on very specific step and repeat them and having their pitch changing and all these kind of things can bring very, very different results from what you would have with a regular granular processor, I think. Modulation is also something quite extensive on this plugin. And in the end, something maybe, if we have time, we will cover it, but the Efx slots have this possibility of being routed in various places of the signal flow. Here you have the possibility to put, for example, whatever effect you want in the feedback loop. That means that if you're, for example, creating grains and feedback them with distortions, and I take the example of distortions, but with whatever effect you want, you can create some really huge textures quite easily. And this is not something that can be found, I think, on other products in this category. I
would also add for the effects that the comb filter creates some really interesting effects that you can't find, that I haven't seen in other granular effects.
Yeah, that's true.
A lot of resonance. It's like it acts like a resonator.
Yes.
More than a filter.
And playing with the frequency, with the modulation, for example, having high resonance, it can produce crazy results. It works especially well in the feedback loop as well. So we have a question, what is the price for it? So the price of the product is 99 euros or $99, if I am not mistaken. And depending on the Arturia product that you already own, you may have an additional discount on this product. This depends on the purchases that you've made before. So go check on your Arturia account and you will see if you got a special pricing condition. So I'm in the scale of C Dorian and I play a C. Then this can generate overtones in the scale of C Dorian. Great. If I play a C major using the same configuration, it's going to generate overtones in the scale of C Dorian, E Dorian, and G Dorian, right?
Music theory.
Yeah. Is this working? Yes.
I think that this is true.
I think so.
That's why it's much easier to play many notes and to play, a bit all over the place with fifths and octaves, because it just stays more. Yeah. You can get pretty dissonant pretty quickly with the scales.
That's it.
Yeah.
You only the scales are just a convention to indicate you what are the intervals between the different notes. But of course, when we say, if I take the example of Dorian, for example, so I have here on my knob, I have 0, which is the root note, then +2 semitones, then +3, +5, +7, +9, +10, +12. So yeah, you have fixed intervals between the notes, and yeah, it will play the scale. If you stay on a C, it will play in Dorian, but then you will have to do the math by yourself.
We wanted to give as many possibilities, of different scales to just, for creative fun.
Is EFX a series? Is this the first, or maybe more creative effects like this will come later?
Hopefully.
I can't say at the moment, but of course we have this prefix EFX, so maybe in the future we'll have some other products in this line. At the moment, yeah, I'm not totally sure about anything, so just stay focused and and follow.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Thank you. Is there a way to set the buffer to play grains at a single point in a sample, similar to Quanta, so that the example is more stable when playing a synth through it, for example? So yes, it's totally possible.
With the offset, no?
With the manual scan, for example. I'm gonna come back to this sound example. So let me open Fragments again. Okay, so I'm taking this grain clave sample that we had earlier. So I'm gonna set, for example, a long buffer time, about 4 bars, for example. So it takes a little bit of time to be recorded, but you'll get the idea. So let me freeze it. And then if I go to the manual scan mode, I can go and pick exactly the fragment of the sample that I want. And what is really great, so I'm playing the same thing over and over, but if I, for example, assign a function to this position, then it can go and trigger whatever part you want exactly. So the function being always synced to tempo, you can produce some really cool stutter effect, for example, using this method. Here everything is quantized to the grid, but if I remove the grid, I can just select whatever I want. And yes, just have to choose from which position I want to start, but that's it. How did you decide which plugin you will develop at Arturia? It is because of an internal need with your team, an artist, or something else? It depends. It really depends on. If I take the example of fragments, granular synthesis was a subject that our DSP team here wanted to dive deep into. So they've started with pigments to implement the granular engine in pigments, and the results were amazing. So the guy who worked on this product was like, yes, but can we do something else from this? Can we take the core of it and do something totally different? And how can we go even further in granular processing? So in the case of fragments, it was really someone from the team checking at something, really diving deep into granular synthesis, and we had a lot of discussions. Of course, we had to look at the needs of the musicians and the market and everything. But overall, the team was really into it. I really like the principle of granular synthesis, so we've started to work on this. And we had the chance to meet with some great artists also on the way who helped us defining the product. We had the chance to work with Anthony Baldino, for example, who made a couple presets for us. Matt Pike, some great people who helped us along the way.
Are there any parameters that can't be automated? Is more my the question I'm wondering. I can't think of any. Only
a few parameters can't be automated.
Maybe like very small ones.
Yes. For example, you can't automate the change of the tempo sync of a delay. Like if you're using a dotted delay, you can't automate the change between dotted delay and triplet quantization.
Maybe if enough people request it, we might.
This is not something.
But until then no. Take.
Seeking for another question. Any way to have both speed and offset control at the same time? No, this is not possible. But actually, both are covering most of the scenarios. So maybe I should spend quickly a bit of time on the difference between speed and offset. This is quite interesting. I have a preset that I've made which can really showcase. I'm gonna do it. Here I go. This one. So yeah, let me go through a preset that is doing some sort of time stretching. So here I have a drum loop, very basic drum loop, and if I'm using the speed mode, I can define at which speed the grains will be played, so it can do some sort of like weird
Yeah, we have there a preset called halftime thing, so it's really useful if you just want to divide into the measures.
But for example, on the other way, the offset mode that can be also synced to tempo, we'll just define an offset between the recording head and the playhead, so you see it moving behind it. So yeah, it's just another way to see the things. Having a mode that do both offset and speed, I don't really know how it could work together. But yeah, anyway, you can always define the offset time by yourself in milliseconds as well, up to 1 second. And by the way, on the speed knob, you have like this magnet point to indicate you where you are. So if you want to do halftime here, you have a magnet point at 0.5. You have one at 0, and you can also go backwards up to 2 times the speed of the playhead, but backwards. Can you put this on the polybrute in a future update?
I don't know.
That sounds really tricky. I'm not sure, to be fair.
You can just put it in your session after with the polybrute and your DAW.
Just use your favorite audio interface, like Audio Fuse.
It would probably be too tricky to access all the parameters anyway on the screen of the polybrute anyway. You know? Yeah,
there is one just here, and I don't see how we could fit so many parameters on such a small screen and a small feature set. But can we use this plugin to create stuttery, glitchy sequences from a dry drum loop or track? Yes, definitely. I have a preset for that.
We have stuttering presets.
yes, we have quite a lot of them actually. So let me go back to my presets. So I have this one, which is a So I'm still using the same boring drum loop, but so here basically I'm using the manual position
sequencer,
and it's the position of the playhead is sequenced here by the modulation sequencer. But I can go even more random. And this is the perfect example of like how you can mangle a drum beat easily. I think there is another one. Let me check.
Stuttering.
Stuttering. I don't think it's this one. Step in time, I think. If I'm not mistaken. No, it's not this one.
We go back.
Okay. Data repeater. It works, of course. So yeah, this is definitely something you can do. I think I have one which is Ocean Sweep, Drum Loop Mangler. Maybe this was the one that I was using before.
That you just played, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely you can do that with this plugin. There is a whole mode dedicated to that, as I was showing you before. Even the Rhythmic mode is really nice for that. You can create some really nice stutter, glitchy effects. Something that is really cool is playing also with the grain crush here. So when you pitch the grain down, it sounds like these old dirty samplers that have very nice grain that adds something really interesting. What is the Darude preset I see in the list?
Darude.
I don't know if I should showcase this one, but it's a preset that I've designed that turns any sound into Darude Soundstorm. Sorry, I have to admit that. But so yeah, okay.
It's not in the factory.
It's not in the factory library, but yeah. And I think we also had a few questions. Oh no, they disappeared. We had a few questions more, but that were from the socials. So
it was in the beginning.
Yeah, but they're not here anymore.
Okay.
So I think we are almost done. Is there any other question that we missed, or everything's okay? Perfect. So thank you very much, everyone, for following this live stream. I hope you had a great time watching us, and see you next time.
Thank you. See you next time.